place, Las Vegas, the year 2000, the Fed Cup. Lindsay Davenport, 3-time Grand Slam champion, is about to walk out and face a rival she has a losing record against. She's rattled. She goes to her captain, tennis legend Billie Jean King, and says, "Just say something." And King, without even thinking about it, says back, "Pressure is a privilege and champions adjust." No script, no pep talk, 6 words. That phrase is now engraved on a plaque at the Arthur Ashe Stadium because it captures something almost nobody teaches you about pressure. It's not the pressure that breaks you. It's what you do with your mind in the 10 seconds before it hits. Here's what almost nobody tells you. Pressure doesn't make your brain shut down. It floods it. Don't mess this up. Remember your opening line. Watch your posture. What if I forget what to say? What if I miss? One thought stacks on another and another until the moment that mattered most is the moment you freeze. You tighten, you second guess, you choke. I've felt it. People I've coached feel it. CEOs, sales teams, parents mid-argument, first-time public speakers. Everyone who has ever cared about an outcome has felt it. So today, I'm giving you a tool that turns pressure is a privilege from a great quote into something you can actually use in the moment. It's used by elite athletes, allegedly by Navy SEALs, surgeons and top performers in every high-stakes field to cut through the noise when it matters most. It's backed by real cognitive science, not just motivational talk, and I'll show you the research behind it. It's called the one thing rule, and by the end of this episode, you'll know exactly how to use it the next time pressure shows up in your life. Welcome back to the Winning Edge Coach podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Oakley, and this is where we break down the tools, tactics, and strategies that build a stronger, more resilient mindset so you can perform at your best when it matters the most. In today's episode, we're exploring the one thing rule. Here's what most people get wrong about pressure. We assume that when the stakes go up, our brain just shuts down, goes blank, stops working. That's not actually what happens. Your brain doesn't switch off under pressure. It switches into overdrive. Cognitive scientist Sian Beilock, who spent her career studying exactly this, calls it paralysis by analysis. In her research and in a 2024 NPR interview about her work, she explains that people who choke aren't the ones who stop thinking. They're the ones who are overthinking, fixating on the small mechanics of what they're doing instead of just doing it. There's actually a name for this in the research literature: explicit monitoring theory. Beilock and her colleague Thomas Carr published a landmark study in the Journal of Experimental Psychology showing that performance pressure elicits maladapted efforts to impose step-by-step monitoring and control on complex procedural knowledge that would run more automatically and efficiently had monitoring not intervened. Let me translate that out of academic speak. When pressure rises, your conscious brain panics and tries to take the wheel. It starts micromanaging skills that used to run on autopilot. The golfer who's putted 10,000 times suddenly starts thinking about their grip. The speaker who knows their material cold suddenly starts thinking about their hands. The striker who scored 100 goals suddenly starts thinking about their standing foot. And the moment you consciously try and control something your brain already knows how to do automatically, you break it. Here's the deeper reason why. Your working memory, your mental workspace, the part of your brain that holds active thoughts, as a hard limit. It can only juggle a small number of things at once. Load it up with 5 instructions, 3 worries, and 1 outcome that you're terrified of, and there's no bandwidth left for actually performing. So here's the truth I want you to sit with. Your brain cannot perform while juggling multiple instructions. It needs clarity, not complexity. So, what do elite performers do in the moment that matters? They don't add more thinking, they subtract it. They simplify everything down to one single instruction. Not 5, not 3, just 1. This is the one thing rule. In any high pressure moment, you choose one thing to focus on and you let everything else go. Here's why this actually works, and it's not just a nice idea. It's backed by decades of motor learning research. Professor Gabriele Wulf of the University of Nevada, Las Vegas, has run and reviewed hundreds of studies on what's called attentional focus. Her meta-analysis, published in the Psychological Bulletin, pooled data from 73 separate studies and over 1,800 participants. The finding was consistent. Performers who focus on one simple external cue, the effect they want to create, consistently outperform those trying to consciously manage multiple internal instructions about their own body. One cue, not a checklist. You see the same pattern in elite sports vision research. Sports scientist Joan Vickers pioneered the study of what's called the quiet eye, the final fixation an athlete's eye make on a target right before they act. A major meta-analysis of 27 studies found that experts consistently hold that single point of visual focus significantly longer than novices, with a large effect size of over 1. And when performers held the quiet eye for longer, their success rate went up too, even within the same person from one attempt to the next. Notice the pattern: one external target, one instruction, one point of attention. That's where performance lives. Think about it in plain, everyday terms. An athlete under pressure doesn't think, keep my posture right, breathe properly, aim carefully, rotate my hips, don't rush. That's 5 instructions competing for the same small mental workspace. Instead, the elite ones narrow it down to one instruction: follow through. A speaker walking on stage doesn't think, what do I say next? How do I look? What if I get my line? Am I talking too fast? They pick one thing: connect with them. A leader walking into a hard conversation doesn't think, say it the right way, don't upset them, stay composed, remember my 3 points. They choose, ask one powerful question. Even a parent about to walk into a stressful house after a brutal day at work doesn't need 10 reminders about patience, tone, and presence. They need 1. Be there. 1 focus, 1 instruction, 1 point of attention. Everything else, every other worry, every other rule gets released. And remember, Lindsay Davenport, back at the Fed Cup tie. She didn't walk out with 5 swing thoughts and a list of worries about Sanchez Vicario's game. She walked out with 6 words ringing in her head. Pressure is a privilege, and champions adjust. 1 idea, 1 shift in focus, and she went out and won the match. That's the one thing rule in action decades before it had a name. Now, let's make this usable, because a good idea that stays a good idea doesn't change your life. A good idea you actually practice does. Here's the technique. I call it the one thing drill, and it takes about 10 seconds to run. Step 1. Before any high pressure moment, ask yourself one question. What is the one thing that matters right now? Not the 10 things that could go wrong, not the outcome you're afraid of, just what's the single lever that you, if you get it right, makes everything else fall in place. Step 2. Turn that answer into 2 or 3 words, short enough that you could say it in the middle of the moment without thinking. Follow through, slow my voice, explode off the line, stay calm, listen deeply. This matters more than people realize. Wulf's research shows that instructions directing attention to an external outcome or effect are more effective than those about your internal body mechanics. So where you can, phrase your one thing as an effect you want to create, not a body part you're trying to control. Step 3, commit to it fully. And this is the part most people skip. Once you've chosen your one thing, you actively let everything else go. Not keep it in the back of your mind just in case. Let it go completely. Because here's the trap. The moment you add a second instruction, your mind starts splitting its attention between them. And research on working memory is blunt about this. Split attention under pressure doesn't just slow you down. In high demand moments, it can cause performance to collapse rather than gently decline. Here's a bonus layer that takes this from good to genuinely elite. Write it down before the moment. Athletes and performance psychologists call this a process cue. A single word or short phrase written on a card, a wristband, the corner of your notes, or just repeat it yourself in the seconds before you begin. Sian Beilock's own research recommends exactly this, a short mantra you can lean on in the moment to keep your conscious mind from hijacking a skill it already knows how to run. So here's your homework for this week, and I want you to actually do this and not just nod along. Before your next pressure moment, a meeting, a workout, a conversation, a presentation, stop for 10 seconds. Ask, what's the one thing? Write it down in 2 or 3 words, and when the moment comes, say it to yourself once and let everything else go. That's it. The whole drill. One question, one phrase, one commitment. Here's something powerful that happens when you actually do this. Your mind quiets, the noise fades, and your body starts doing what it already knows how to do. This isn't wishful thinking. It maps onto a well-established idea in motor learning science called the stages of skill acquisition. When you first learn any skill, you're in the cognitive stage. Everything demands conscious effort, and your working memory is maxed out. But with enough repetition, skills move into the associative and eventually the autonomous stage, where the movement runs with little or no conscious thought at all, freeing up your working memory for other things. And here's what that means for you. If you've done the work, if you've practiced the presentation, run the drill, had the difficult conversation before in some form, the skill is already there. It's autonomous, it's ready to run. You don't need more thinking in the moment, you need less interference. Underneath all that noise in your head, you already have the skill, you already have the experience, you already have the ability. The one thing rule doesn't give you a new skill, it gets your own thinking out of the way so that the skill you've already built can actually show up. So, before we close today, let's actually practice this together, just for a moment. Wherever you are, if it's safe to do so, let your shoulders drop and bring to mind a situation that's coming up for you. Something that matters, something with a bit of pressure attached to it. Now notice, what is the one thing that would make the biggest difference if you focused on it completely? Don't overthink it. The first honest answer that comes up is usually the right one. Hold that. Just that one thing. Picture yourself before that moment, saying it once to yourself, and then letting everything else fade into the background. Just that one thing. Everything else can wait. Good. Bring your focus back into the room. Carry that one phrase with you today. So, the next time the pressure rises and your mind starts racing through everything that could go wrong, remember this. You don't need to do more. You don't need to think harder. You need to choose one thing and commit to it fully. Go back to where we started today. Billie Jean King, 6 words, no script. Pressure is a privilege and champions adjust. She didn't say champions overthink. She didn't say champions control every variable. She said champions adjust. They find one shift that matters and they commit to it. The research backs it. Elite performers live by it. And now you have a 10-second drill to use today. Your winning edge. Simplicity is power. Pressure is privilege. And your job is to simply adjust. That's it for today's episode of the Winning Edge Coach podcast. Here's your one action from today's episode. Before your next pressure moment, big or small, run the one thing drill. Ask, what's the one thing? Put it into 2 or 3 words. Write it down if you can and commit to it completely when the moment arrives. Try it once this week, just once. Notice what changes. And if you want to go deeper on performing under pressure, building unshakable focus and training your mind the way elite performers train their bodies, that's exactly what this show is here for. So hit the subscribe button or follow right now wherever you're listening so you never miss a future episode. Now, I want you to think for 1 second about someone in your life who performs under pressure. A partner prepping for a big presentation, a son or daughter about to walk into an exam or a match, a colleague who freezes in meetings, a friend who's about to have a hard conversation they've been putting off. Send them this episode. Genuinely, this could be the 10 seconds of clarity they need in their next big moment. That's how this show grows. One person sharing it with someone who needs it. And if this episode gave you something useful today, here's the biggest favor you can do for me, and it costs you nothing but about 60 seconds. Leave this show a rating or a review wherever you're listening. I read every single one. It doesn't just make my day, it directly helps the podcast reach more people who are struggling with exactly what we talked about today. Pressure, overthinking, and the fear of choking when it matters the most. One honest review from you can be the reason someone else finds this episode when they need it the most. So, subscribe, share it with someone who needs it, and if you've got a spare minute, leave a review. It genuinely makes a difference. Thank you for listening. I'll see you next time. Until then, remember, at your winning edge, simplicity is power.